what we learned was the reason the debt is still growing is because, yep, she's spreading out this cash flow amongst all of these different areas and it's not being focused in one direction. Look at the interest that's being accrued on this basic expense that could easily just be paid for by cash. So what if we did something a little bit different? What are some of the mistakes that have been identified in this process? And the list that you're seeing right now is the full list of mistakes that we talked about on Wednesday. So it's knowing the goal, knowing the numbers, impact of extra payments, only focused on the debts, lifestyle adjustments, unnecessary interest paid, not knowing your cash flow in general, and then cash flow being spread across multiple debts, having multiple debt tools, being over leveraged, and the last one being the impact that velocity banking has on your credit profile. So it's kind of understanding all of those holistically. In this specific example, majority of these were addressed with exception of, I'd say these two, meaning she's not only focused on the debts. So I don't think that's as much of an issue. And also she's very open to understanding how her lifestyle is being impacted by velocity banking. So meaning she's okay with having to give up some of those creature comforts to be able to address the debt. That's not the issue. The issue was, I feel like I'm making decent money. I feel like I have decent revenue, but for whatever reason, the debts aren't getting smaller. And so what we identified was, majority of these items are being addressed. Specifically, unnecessary interest being paid was a big one for me, and the cash flow being spread across multiple debts, and then this one, multiple debt tools. These three were the main ones that I really wanted to focus on. Was, can we kind of hone in on one debt tool, take that one debt tool, focus most of our energy, our income, our revenue on that debt tool, and then use that debt tool to pay off other debts. Again, truly following the velocity banking, I'll call it steps. And so what does that mean? Well, it all starts with once you identify the goal, and in this case, the goal was I've got $272,000 in debt that I need to get rid of. Once I understand the goal, it's okay, what does that mean from a velocity banking perspective? Well, I've got income coming in. And when that income comes in, where does it go? It goes to a debt tool, an identified debt tool, which we're going to use the HELOC. It's maxed out. It has a balance of, it's not fully maxed out. I think the room is like 70 grand, but it has about $61,000 on the second position home equity line of credit. So we're going to take all of the income, and this is just showing the revenue, but we're going to take all, or the cash flow in general. So we're going to take all of the income, dump it onto the debt tool, and do what? We're going to address the debts from both of these spaces. The debts that are impacted by both of these, or the expenses coming from both of these spaces, is about $13,000 and about $35,000, depending on which business. And just so we're clear, expenses associated with, matter of fact, this is the total on the expenses that she has. And then in addition, what's going to be left? Well, that cash flow that I'd referenced earlier, that is what lives on the debt tool and continues to drive it down. In addition, it was, well, what's the path forward? Meaning in what order should we go? How quickly should we address what? Like, I don't know that there's a wrong answer here either, but this was just the path that I had chosen. It was the first thing I wanted to do was address this line of credit. Why? Because one, I want to get these loans out the way because these are open-ended. I think these have a little bit more versatility to them. Yeah, this line of credit has a larger interest rate and the monthly payment is larger, but if I can address these first, I can get the bank off my back. If I can address these first, I can get this, my debt to income ratio will look a little bit different as well. And so what we started out with was taking that cash flow that we have, doing velocity banking, and address this one first. How long would it take for $33,000 to be addressed from a velocity banking perspective if the cash flow is 14 grand? Like, it's just simple math. If I'm using the cash flow to do velocity banking, how much of my cash flow would it take to pay off this $33,000 loan? And I kind of, Sweetheart, you did, I think, an amazing job with this slide here on just kind of identifying it from calendar perspective, meaning how much time would it take to address $33,000 in debt? Well, it ends up being somewhere around 2.25 months if we were to use this cash flow to, again, live on the debt tool and use that cash flow to address the debt. So again, following velocity banking, it takes roughly a little bit over 2 months to be able to do that. And when that's done, there's an additional $340 a month in cash flow that's going to be added once this debt is gone. And so how long would it take from that point then, if you add this cash flow to the original cash flow, the additional $340 to the original number, how much would it take to then address the next debt? And the next debt was $50,000. Well, it would take somewhere around 3.3 months, which then would again do what? It allows the cash flow to then be increased by whatever that monthly payment was on that original debt, which was around $543 a month. So these were the two loans. So we can address the two loans, and what is that? a little bit over 5.5 months. So in 5.5 months, she's picked up $783 a month in cash flow on top of the 14,660 that was already there. And so just continuing down that path, going after the $45,000 next takes another about 3 months to do so, picking up another $500 in cash flow. And then that 83,000, it's going to take somewhere around, I think right around, yeah, there it is, a little bit over almost 6 months. So I think I was thinking 6 in my head, but almost 6 months is what it's going to take to end up paying off the 83,000. And then once those debts are paid, we still have the debt tool. Because think about it from a velocity banking perspective. I put all of my income onto the debt tool, it brings the balance down. I pay bills from that debt tool to include whatever chunking I'm going to do on the loans and the lines of credit that I'm paying off, which means that balance on the debt tool, that $61,000 is really living at the top of that limit for the majority of the time that I'm doing this. It's an evolving number, meaning when I put all of my income on, the balance goes down, but when I pay bills from it, the balance goes back up. So it's a fluctuating number, but for the most part, when I'm done paying off all of these debts, that balance on the debt tool is also going to be somewhere around that $60,000 mark. So how long would it take then just to simply address the balance on the debt tool, which would be another 3.5 months? And I'm not showing any additional cash flow from that because what did we not address? Meaning in taking care of these debts that we had identified, which was the $272,000 in debt, what did we not touch? We didn't touch any of the credit cards. And that was intentional because at this stage, what's going to, if she didn't start out addressing the credit cards, which she could, if you're following this process, at this point, I'm going to then be taking the cash flow created on the debt tool, and I'm going to be using that to pay off the remaining credit card. But at this point, between here and here, I would have picked up another, almost $4,000 in cash flow. So I've gone from $14,000 in cash flow up to about 17, what was that number? 17, right around 17 months, maybe less than 18 months. The piece that I also want to make sure is connected here is, yeah, these numbers seem fairly large, but I'm telling you, if you just divide them all by 10, this is all of us. This is absolutely all. These numbers are not that unusual as it relates to a lot of the people that I talk to, meaning having $5, $3, $8, $4, and $6,000 of debt, regardless of the form, whether we're talking lines of credit, loans, student loans, whatever the case may be. This is very, very normal. And trying to identify what the debt tool would be out of a vehicle like this and what to tackle first, because this could have easily just have been done by debt snowball. Take the smallest debt and knock that one out first using the cash flow that you have, which would have been this one. Again, if I'm using debt snowball, I'm going to take that $14,000, $15,000 in 2 months. This is knocked out. I picked up $340 in cash flow and away I go. So this is very, very, I'll call it consistent with what it is I'm seeing. And the other piece is this, making sure that we don't lose sight of those velocity banking mistakes. Like if you were to look at your own personal situation, do you fully understand the goal? And when you lay out the numbers, is it you understand what's happening in the immediate, but when you peel back the layers and dig into the details, are you making extra payments on things that maybe isn't serving you? Are you using a credit card as a debt tool, picking up the points and getting the cash back, but do you end up paying more interest than you would have had you just simply paid off the debt initially with the cash flow that you have? So I think it's understanding where in this scenario do you also fit as it relates to the mistakes of velocity banking. And I think to the comment that you had shared before, it is absolutely like we get into this conditioning. I think two things actually. It's one, conditioning, and the other is I believe velocity banking is a fad. I think people just want to be doing velocity banking. They want the excitement of using their credit card to pay their mortgage. Like that sounds amazing, right? But I think we run into these situations where in the efforts of just trying to do velocity banking, we lose sight of what velocity banking actually is. And the truth about velocity banking is it's all about the debt tool. It's about this part. It's not about the expenses. It's about the debt tool. If you focus your attention on the debt tool, regardless of what it is you're using, you can actually hit your goal.
Well, I think it's all about the cash flow. I think it's because that's the gas, right? You can have whatever vehicle you want, but if you have nothing to power that vehicle, then you're not going very far or very fast.
And I, in essence, think we're talking about the same thing because it's where does the cash flow live?
Yeah,
So you're
live.
right. It is all about the cash flow. If the cash flow is living in your checking account, does it have the capability of using the same dollar multiple times? No. If the cash flow is living on a credit card, but the balance on that credit card is staying high, or the cash flow is so low that the interest rate on that credit card is actually eating up the cash flow, in essence, we are talking about the same thing because it's the cash flow and where it's located. And to me, if you focus your attention on the right debt tool, this will look a lot.